While sedans aren't as popular as they used to be, that hasn't stopped some car makers from releasing all new models. This is the GAC Empow. Some say it's a direct competitor to the Honda Civic. Does it stand a chance? Alright, let's find out. Perhaps the most direct shot at the Civic lies under the hood. The Empow is powered by a 1.5-liter turbo petrol engine that generates 168 horsepower and 270 newton meters of torque. For you number nerds out there, that's 8 horsepower less than the Civic, but 30 newton meters more in torque. In terms of fuel economy on this drive, we managed 9 kilometers per liter in the city and 18.5 kilometers per liter on the highway. Now, before I discuss what it's like to drive the Empow, I first have to talk about what it's like to sit in it. Yes, this is a compact sedan, so the ride height is very low, but the seating isn't. This actually has a high hip point and a pretty upright backrest, so you're pretty much taking on an SUV-like driving position. Now, whether that's a good or a bad thing depends on your preference. Me personally, I like feeling like I'm really driving a sedan. I like the low hip point, I like to recline my seat back, and I like to cruise back while I drive. But for those of you who are more used to SUVs, crossovers, and like having as much of a commanding view of the road as you can get inside a compact sedan, then this is a good thing. The Empow's on-road performance has a split personality thing going for it. At low speeds, when you're cruising along the city, or maybe you're on provincial roads like we are today, the engine works great. Picks up speed when you need it, you can do quick overtakes, no problem at all. You get several driving modes here. For me, at these speeds, Eco works best. Of course, this sedates the performance quite a bit, but it does the job just fine. Comfort would be okay too, except it takes on that engine brake quality when you lift off the throttle that Sport mode offers you. And this would be fine if you weren't in stop-start traffic, which tends to happen. And this means you're rocking to and fro, so I just tend to flick it to Eco mode. But the engine performance problems come when you switch to Sport mode, in particular when you're at highway speeds. So I'm going to switch to Sport right now, and you know, normally you'd expect maybe half a second of turbo lag before you pick up speed, but if you notice there, it took some time for the engine to actually pick up speed, and I was actually hitting the higher rev ranges there. Now this is a problem when, let's say you're on the highway and you need to do a quick overtake. So as far as comparisons to the Civic's engine performance are concerned, it's not quite up there, but it does the job just fine for the most part. The problem comes with the car's handling. It's a little too pedestrian for my liking. Now of course, the Civic is a commuter sedan when it comes down to it, but it also offers sporty performance to back up the legendary name. This, however, does not. The steering, there's not enough feedback, it's a little too soft. And the handling, there's a little too much body roll when you're trying to wring out performance. It's quite noticeable that the car's a little bit billowy. Now the trade-off there is that the ride comfort for a sedan is very good. Potholes, bumps, it takes it in stride. You barely feel it inside the cabin. Now suspension-wise, you get McPherson struts up front and multi-links in the back. And these are paired to, at least in this variant, 17-inch tires. Now despite that larger tire size, road imperfections, you barely notice them. It's not really a problem here. So it's a bit of a compromise. It's not as sporty as some of its rivals, particularly its chief rival, the Civic, but it is much more comfortable. Perhaps the most striking thing inside the Empow is this two-layer center console here in the middle. Very, very reminiscent of the 10th generation Civic. I have no idea if that was an intentional thing or not, but that's just the way it looks. And then here in the center, you get this 7-inch infotainment screen. It gets Apple CarPlay, all the usual trimmings, standard across the range. Underneath that, these manual aircon controls are a very welcome touch in a digital world. Not automatic, but very easy to toggle, very easy to adjust while you're driving. In front of the driver here is this fully digital gauge cluster. For me, I'm not too fond of it. I'll always prefer analog when it comes to instrument clusters, but you know, you can check your fuel economy, you can check the vehicle settings, all that sort of thing. Pretty easy enough. You can toggle the controls here on the steering wheel. Steering wheel, is a plastic affair with a flat bottom design, 3 spokes, lots of controls here. You have the adaptive cruise control down here on the bottom. You have the adjustments for the digital gauge clusters. You have, of course, controls for the infotainment system and voice control as well. Moving on to the middle here, nice touch here. Push button start, but they put it in the center, so it feels like you're starting up like a, I don't know, like a McLaren F1 or something like that. And then you have the shifter here, which it's one of those digital setups that don't actually physically move when you shift. It just sort of toggles the modes back and forth. You have volume controls here on the right. You have drive mode selector here on the left. And you've got your electronic parking brake and a very, very, very welcome touch, I might add, auto hold, which is great for traffic. That's here. And then the parking gear selector is right there. This here is faux carbon fiber. A nice design touch, I must say. Gives what is an elegant car on the outside a bit of a sporty touch on the inside. Then along the dashboard here, you get some leather trimmings here and here with a red design accent there. Now these seats as well, nice mix of what appears to be some fabric, but mostly leather. Well bolstered here along the sides, not too much. It's not digging into my sides or anything. Quite comfy, keeps you in place, but keeps you comfortable at the same time. And up the top here you get a sunroof. Now as far as space goes, I'm 5'5", about 150 pounds, and I'm quite comfortable here at the front. I have more than enough legroom here. The steering wheel gets height and telescopic adjustment, so I can adjust to make some more legroom if I so choose. Headroom wise, I've got a couple of inches here, very generous. And width wise as well, I'm fairly comfortable here despite this big center console in the middle. An added nicety here inside the Empow is the fact that the driver's seat is power adjusted. Unfortunately, the passenger seat is not. Alright, let's move on to the back. Again, 5'5", about 150 pounds. Legroom quite generous. Granted, that's my driving position in the front, but I'm finding it's quite generous here. Headroom, while not as generous as the front, still got a couple of inches of clearance there, so no problem. Width-wise, I'd estimate 3 of me would fit. Bit of a tight squeeze, but I think overall we'd be fairly comfortable. Now, amenities-wise, like the front, you get black leather seats with red trimming. You also get that along the sides here, and you get this faux carbon fiber, same as the front, around the door handles. You have a USB port, a dedicated aircon vent, and you have cup holders and speakers on either side. Now while 3 of me here would be comfortable, 2 would have to just make do with the fact that there is no center armrest here in the middle. Okay, let's move on to the exterior design. Now while some manufacturers try to make their sedans look sporty and outrageous, here GAC's opted for a more mature approach. So you can see here, it's got a fastback-like slope, unusual for the segment these days, but very elegant in this case. However, it's not without its sportiness. Here you have a carbon fiber design on the side mirrors, and you have these twin color alloy wheels. And as we move on to the front, you get this grille here. It's big, but overall the car still manages to stay classy. However, this design does come with one major flaw. And that flaw exists here in the back. Now, while this does have a fastback-like design, it's not actually a fastback, which means this rear windshield doesn't lift up. The result of which is that the entrance space into this trunk is very, very limited. The space inside is quite generous, but the actual size of the things you'll be able to put in are going to be rather restricted, so to speak. If you imagine you have like a buy-in box or a big crate or box of groceries, whatever else, it's kind of hard to put them in there. You can fit it inside, sure, but you're not going to be able to get it inside. Let's talk prices. As we're filming this, the GAC Empow is available at introductory prices. The price list starts at $1,135,000 for the base variant, $1,215,000 for the mid-spec. The top of the line variant goes for $1,283,000. Now before we give our final score, let's look at the pros and cons. Top of the list of pros for the Empow has to be ride comfort. This is a compact sedan, and compact sedans are hardly the most comfortable cars out there. However, this has to rate as one of the most adept in its segment. Potholes and minor bumps aren't going to be a problem here. Next is interior space. Again, these aren't the most spacious cars out there, but I'd wager that 5 average-sized Pinoys would fit comfortably here inside. Next is tech. All the right boxes are ticked here, from Apple CarPlay to adaptive cruise control. You have everything you need here in terms of safety and convenience. Lastly is fuel economy. You can't scoff at the numbers we managed to achieve with this unit, not in this age of high fuel prices. These days, every drop of fuel counts. Next, the cons. First is driving performance. Now, a lot of people say this is a Honda Civic competitor, but if you're going to call it that, then it needs the sporty performance and handling to match. And on those two fronts, the Empow falls short. Next is luggage space. Now, the space itself is very generous, but the actual entrance, not so much. You're not going to be able to fit a whole lot of things in there, at least not bulky items. So what's our final verdict? We give this one a 7 out of 10. While it's a solid competitor in its segment, and it comes with all the amenities you expect in a car of this price range, it does fall short of that Honda Civic competitor badge.